I went to see the OB-GYN. The doctor asked, "Why are you here alone? Where's the father?" I replied mysteriously, "Doctor, I just borrowed the seed. I want the child, not the man." The next second, a cold laugh came from behind me. Borrowed the seed? I turned to see the aloof professor I had a wild night with, standing right behind me. "Yana, my seed is only worth $10 to you. 2 months ago, Marriott Business KTV. Sir, I lost a game. May I borrow your belt?" I nervously stared at the broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted figure in the hallway, his back facing me. He tilted his head slightly, high-nose bridge, sharp jawline, a flashing blue light on his Bluetooth earpiece. Damn, he's handsome. But wait. Holy crap, it's Jack. I froze, staring at the face I'd crushed on for 4 years in college. Snapping out of it, I stammered, "Sorry, I didn't realize you were on a call. I'll ask someone else." I turned to leave, but suddenly, a strong hand grabbed my wrist. Looking back, I met Jack's cool, intense gaze. He was quietly examining me. The next second, he guided my hand to his belt. Click! The buckle came undone. My eyes widened as my cheeks burned with heat. Jack pulled the belt off and handed it to me, giving me a deep look. Then he lightly covered his Bluetooth mic and said, "Room V18. Be sure to return it before you leave." Back in the private room, my colleagues erupted in excitement. "No way, Yana. You really got a belt? Is he hot or what?" I just smiled faintly, Jack's face stuck in my mind. I didn't know why he'd lent me the belt. After all, I was probably the one who caused him the most trouble during our university years. He was a university's youngest, most handsome professor. Plenty of fangirls signed up for his classes, but only I chased him so fiercely. I blocked him after class to ask questions, brought him cakes and coffee to his office. Professor Tomas, who shared his office, always gave me weird looks. "Yana, bringing something nice to Professor Smith again?" Eventually, rumors spread all over campus about me chasing him. Under the pressure, Jack returned the latte I'd given him in front of the entire lecture hall. "Thanks for the thought, but I only drink Americanos. I don't like lattes and I never will. I hope certain students stop bringing them." Then he turned and continued the lecture. The stares from classmates, mocking, annoyed, pitying, were unbearable. I didn't even make it to the end of class before I ran out, eyes red. It was snowing lightly that day. I cried as I walked through campus. I never bothered him again, not even once, until graduation. After the party ended, I went to room V18 to return Jack's belt. I braced myself, knocked, and placed the belt on the table. From a distance, I nodded at him. Someone nearby teased, "So you're the girl who stole Jack's belt?" "Stole," I repeated, annoyed. "He gave it to me." That guy raised his eyebrows. "Oh, you two know each other." I didn't know how to respond. Instinctively, I looked toward Jack. He was slightly flushed, his gaze on me soft and deep. Something fluttered in my chest. I averted my eyes and muttered, "Not really." "We know each other." "She's a friend," Jack cut in. "A friend? Not a student?" Before I could process that, a birthday cake lit with candles was pushed in. I realized it was Jack's birthday. After the song, he handed me a slice of cake. Just as I took it, someone bumped into me from behind. I stumbled straight into Jack's arms. The cake smeared onto his pants. Flustered, I grabbed tissues and started wiping. "I'm so sorry." When I noticed where I was wiping, it was already too late. Jack had caught my hand, his eyes intense and unreadable. He leaned in and whispered, his breath warm against my ear. Was that on purpose? The noise around us faded. I could only hear our breaths. That night, we helped each other into a cab and then into a hotel. His wine-scented kisses fell on my lips, my neck, my collarbone, and further down. When I woke again, my waist ached terribly. I opened my eyes wide. The marks all over my body and the mess on the floor reminded me of what had happened. I looked over at Jack. Morning light filtered through the curtains, shining on his peaceful face, still breathtakingly handsome. But he doesn't like me. Worried he'd open his eyes and look at me with disgust, I slipped out of bed. Before leaving, I transferred 1,000 yuan to his account with the message, "Sorry, last night was a mistake. This is compensation. I have a boyfriend." Then I blocked him. As the year-end approached, work got busy. I didn't even notice my period was 2 weeks late. For days, I was yawning nonstop while holding a mic at interviews. A colleague joked, "Yana, why are you so sleepy lately?" Just like when I was pregnant. My hand froze mid-yawn. That night, I bought a pregnancy test at the pharmacy. Minutes later, I stared at the 2 pink lines. It was like lightning struck my brain. We'd used protection that night. How could this happen? I called my doctor bestie Nancy. She paused and said, "Yana, condoms aren't 100%. If things get too intense, they can break. Don't panic. Come to the hospital. Tests are more accurate than a stick." Just to be safe, I booked a trusted specialist. I sat down and said directly, "Doctor, I think I'm pregnant. Please run the tests." The doctor glanced at me, then frowned at the empty seat beside me. She raised her voice, annoyed. "Why are you here alone? Where's the father?" Seeing that I wasn't speaking, the doctor started to get annoyed. What's wrong with men these days? Their wives are pregnant, and they don't even accompany them to prenatal checkups. As her voice grew louder, I had to stop her. Feigning mystery, I replied, "Doctor, I'm using donor sperm. I want the child, not the father." Just as I said that, a cold laugh came from behind me. Donor sperm. Startled, I turned around and saw Jack standing right behind me. His gaze was like shards of ice. As if remembering something, he let out a bitter snort. "Yana, my sperm is only worth $10 to you?" "What? $10? Wasn't it supposed to be 1,000? Wait, never mind that. The real issue is, this is the obstetrics department. What is Jack doing here? How did he get in? If anything, he should be at the urology clinic, right?" Just as I was thinking that, a beautiful, familiar face stepped out from behind Jack, holding an ultrasound report. That face was so familiar, I instinctively clenched the bag in my hand. Rose, an instructor in the literature department at a university. She was also someone rumored to have had something with Jack back in college. She glanced at me and spoke with curiosity. "Jack, who is this?" She was holding an ultrasound report, and Jack was clearly accompanying her. Anyone could see what was going on. I suddenly recalled how, back in college, every weekend Rose would leave campus in Jack's car. Rumors of them dating were everywhere. One time, I brought Jack a cake and ran into Rose in the parking lot. When I told her why I came, she smiled sweetly and took the cake from my hands. "Jack doesn't like sweets, but thank you anyway. He's getting something from the office for me. Do you want to wait?" That time, I swallowed the bitterness in my heart and shook my head politely before walking away. Later, I subtly asked Jack if he was single. He stared at his computer screen, eyes fixed on his algorithm, and gave a soft But now, it seemed he had ended up with Rose after all. They even had a child on the way. I looked down at Rose's still flat belly, probably just early in the pregnancy, not showing yet. Thinking that I might be pregnant with Jack's child too felt incredibly ironic. What a mess. Was I being cheated on? While I stood there silently, Rose seemed to recognize me. "Aren't you Rose from the class of 2022, School of Journalism and Communication? You took Professor Smith's computer science elective, right? I remember you. You were quite well known." Of course I was. Back then, everyone knew I was chasing Jack. Suppressing the sourness in my chest, I nodded politely. "Hello, Miss Garcia." Just then, the doctor handed me the completed test form. I grabbed it and stood up to leave, but as I passed Jack, he grabbed my wrist. Glancing at Rose, he pulled me aside, eyes dark and heavy. "Yana, aren't you going to explain this?" "Explain what?" Did he really think I poked holes in the condom to get pregnant with his child? The thought made me laugh bitterly. I shook off his hand and said mockingly, Professor Smith, you're overthinking it. The child isn't yours. I told you, I have a boyfriend. Without waiting to see the dark expression on his face, I turned and walked away. Just as Jack was about to chase after me, Rose suddenly called out, Jack, can you come here for a second? She looked at me with a soft smile and gently touched her stomach. The next moment, I walked away without looking back. Later that day, the ultrasound results came in false pregnancy. I must have made a mistake in my panic, which led to the error. Relieved, I called Nancy to explain everything. As soon as she heard it, I could hear her slamming something down in anger on the other end. What? The child is Jack's? And you were going to hide it and get an abortion on your own. Yana, are you stupid? Even if you didn't want to keep it, he still has to take responsibility. What kind of guy just walks away after the fun's over? That's like committing the crime, but refusing to bury the body. I gave a bitter laugh. But I'm not even pregnant now. In my opinion, you've closed yourself off too much since graduating. It's always work, interviews, writing. You don't meet enough men. That's why you got tangled up with a fox like Jack. You need to open up, go socialize. That night, Nancy's words kept echoing in my mind. Ever since Jack rejected me, I'd developed an aversion to men. Even when some guys showed interest, I felt like I didn't deserve to be liked. It reminded me of when I was a kid and my parents were divorcing, neither of them wanted to take me. In the end, they left me with relatives. Living under someone else's roof for too long made me used to being looked down on. It was around then that I began to believe I didn't deserve anything good. Chasing Jack was probably the bravest thing I've ever done in my life. And it left me introverted for years. But we can't live in the past forever. I had to move forward. Coincidentally, someone in my university class group was organizing a reunion. I usually never went to things like that. But this time, I added my name to the list. The reunion was set at a commercial villa in the western suburbs, fully equipped for entertainment. When I arrived, the class monitor looked surprised. Yana, you're still in the city? I thought you took an offer from a hometown TV station after graduation and moved back. I did, but later decided the city had more opportunities, so I came back. Truth was, after both my parents remarried, they grew distant toward me. I no longer had a home in that town, might as well return to the city I knew. That night, the reunion was lively. I couldn't help having a few more drinks. When the wine decanter ran dry, I got up to refill it at the island counter. Suddenly, a large, warm hand with distinct joints pressed over mine. I looked up and met Jack's narrow eyes, filled with a hint of reproach. He spoke seriously. Don't you know your own situation? You shouldn't be drinking. Just as I was about to explain, the class monitor called out excitedly behind me. Professor Smith is here? I had no idea why Jack came to the reunion. If I'd known, I wouldn't have come. But now that I was here, I could only tough it out and stay. Later, the conversation turned to a controversial topic trending in short videos, keeping the child but discarding the father. Jack gave a cold laugh, his gaze lingering meaningfully on me. Then someone mentioned that their girlfriend was pregnant, but her family disapproved of him, and he didn't know what to do. Jack suddenly spoke up. If it were me, I'd take responsibility. I'd do everything I could to win her family's approval and marry her. The cup in my hand suddenly tightened under my grip. So, does that mean Jack is getting married to Rose? Following the topic, someone joked. Then Professor Smith, when are you getting married? So Yana can finally give up. As soon as those words fell, the atmosphere turned subtly awkward. It seemed many people only just remembered that there was still a die-hard Jack admirer among us. When I saw all those strange looks shoot toward me, I couldn't help but shoot to my feet. That's all in the past. I have to go. Hope you all have fun tonight. I grabbed my bag and walked straight out of the villa. The western suburbs were remote, the night like the maw of a beast, its fangs ready to devour. I stood under the streetlight waiting for someone when Jack came chasing after me. I haven't been drinking, let me drive you home. No need. My boyfriend is picking me up. I took a deep breath, steadied my emotions, and turned to face him. Jack, I'm not pregnant, so you don't have to carry any psychological burden. That night was an accident, neither of us wanted it. But since it happened, I hope we can both forget it and return to the paths we belong on. I forced a smile. Don't worry. I don't like you anymore. I won't cling to you. Jack fell silent. After a long pause, he looked deeply at me, clearly wanting to say something. Yana, I asked around in your class. No one's heard of you having a boyfriend. When I didn't reply, he slowly stepped closer. I thought you'd gone back to your hometown. I didn't know you were still in the city. Your class rep said. Before he could finish, a sharp screech of tires on gravel rang out. A black sedan stopped right in front of us. The window rolled down. Inside, my childhood friend Mike raised his brows at me, his face pulled tight. Fatty, get in the car. Jack looked stunned, clearly. He hadn't expected someone to actually show up to pick me up. When he saw who was inside, his face darkened instantly. I opened the door and got in without a word. Under the streetlight, Jack's shadow stretched long and thin, somehow giving off a lonely impression. I turned back and gave him a little smile. Oh, right, congratulations on your wedding. Goodbye, Jack. Goodbye forever. The car started up at that very moment. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jack's usually stoic face scrunched in a deep frown. That night, Mike and I had a late-night meal, a sort of welcome dinner. He'd been my childhood friend back when classmates used to mock me for not having parents. He was the one who beat up the boys who bullied me, making them too afraid to say anything after that. He was in town on a business trip. We had originally planned to have dinner, but because of the class gathering, we pushed it to a late meal, so he came to pick me up. Unexpectedly, he ended up playing the role of the boyfriend I had made up on the spot. Halfway through eating, Mike asked, Fatty, was that guy your admirer? Did I just block a potential romance for you? I replied flatly, he didn't pursue me. He rejected me. Mike almost spat out his drink. Pfft. You chase someone. And you call yourself my friend? We've known each other for so long. How come you've never tried chasing me? I scoffed, because you're not my type. That's a solid reason. Later that night, Mike carried his big bags of local specialties into my place. As he was leaving, he remembered something and reminded me. I'll be in town for the next half-month. If you need anything, call me. At the time, I wondered when I'd possibly need him to come bail me out again. And then life slapped me in the face the very next day. Our magazine had taken on an interview about new energy algorithms. But because the colleague in charge was reassigned to another project last minute, the editor-in-chief dumped the task on me. On the way there, reading the interview outline, I felt a faint sense of unease. A university, new energy algorithms. And sure enough, when I saw that striking figure on site, my worst fear came true. The professor arranged by the computer science department was Jack. Since I was taking over someone else's assignment on short notice, and the topic was highly technical, I barely understood a thing during the interview. Jack probably noticed this. At the end of the interview, he deliberately called out to me, "Journalist Ramsey, please make sure our department reviews the final draft before it's published." I nodded at him expressionlessly. Of course. That evening, I forced myself to listen to the recording, take notes, and research all the technical terms. After barely passing the editor's approval, I sent the draft to Jack's email, only to receive a rejection. The phrasing lacks professionalism. Please revise. I quickly revised the draft and sent it again. A few nervous minutes later, the exact same reply came back. The phrasing still lacks professionalism. Please revise further. A third time. A fourth time. By the fourth rejection, I was furious. You say there's a problem, but don't point out where. What kind of person does that? I wanted to call and yell at him, only to remember that I had blocked his number. After some internal struggle, I gave in to the employee survival instinct and begrudgingly unblocked him. The moment I did, he sent a smiley face emoji. I ignored it, clenched my jaw, and typed, "Professor Smith, would you please kindly point out the specific issues in my draft so I can revise accordingly?" I tried to sound polite, but every keystroke nearly shattered my molars. Jack replied quickly, "There are too many details to revise. It's hard to explain in writing." What does that mean? He wants to meet in person? Before I could fully process, he sent over a map location. It seemed to be his home address. It was 10 o'clock at night. A man was inviting you to his house. Even if it was for work, even if I knew he didn't like me, it still felt undeniably strange. But the deadline for the feature was tight. It had to be finalized by tomorrow. After a moment's hesitation, I gritted my teeth and stomped my foot. To hell with it. I grabbed my laptop and headed out the door. On the way there, I was anxious, wondering how to face Rose when the door opened. After all, I had once pursued Jack. If I said I was only there for the interview draft, that clearly wouldn't be convincing. So I prepared a set of evidence, a screenshot of my email with the editor confirming the submission deadline, to prove I was genuinely there to revise the draft. But the moment the door opened, I was stunned. The entire villa Jack lived in was decorated in black, white, and gray tones. Even the shoe cabinet at the entrance only had a few pairs of men's shoes. The place was filled with the aura of living alone. There was no trace of a woman having stayed there. Seeing me frozen at the door, he handed me a pair of men's slippers. "We'll revise the draft in the dining room on the first floor. That okay?" Oh, sure." I nodded while opening my laptop. As soon as I sat down, a glass of juice was placed beside me. Jack sat next to me, took my mouse, and started marking the parts that needed revision. He got so absorbed in the task that he leaned halfway toward me, his whole body almost enveloping mine. His gray robe folded slightly as he sat, opening just enough at the deep V neckline for me to see his abs from my angle. For some reason, my face grew warm. I picked up the juice and took a sip, my mouth dry. Unable to help myself, I asked, "Where's Miss Garcia?" "You two don't live together." Jack's hand paused on the mouse. He looked down and stared at me. Why would I live with her? I was stunned for several seconds before it hit me. Some southern regions do have traditions where the bride and groom aren't allowed to see each other before the wedding. So I asked, "Are you planning to live together after the wedding?" At that, Jack straightened up and spoke slowly. "Yana, I wanted to ask you this back outside the villa. Who told you I was getting married?" I swallowed hard. Wait. There was a knot of confusion forming in my brain. Once it clicked, I asked in disbelief, "You mean you're not getting married? Then what about the baby?" Jack paused for a few seconds. Then, as if he finally understood, he looked down and let out a low chuckle. His unconcerned reaction irritated me. Just as I was about to snap, Jack's laughter faded and he said, "So that's it. You thought Rose went to the hospital because she was pregnant with my child. Yana." He leaned in close, and I saw my own face reflected in his dark eyes. His deep voice brushed into my ear. "I've only ever been with one person, you." For the next 10 minutes or so, Jack explained everything to me. His parents were entrepreneurs and often flew around for business when he was young. Every time they traveled, Jack would stay at a neighbor's house for meals. That neighbor's daughter was Rose. Even after they grew up, the neighbor would still invite Jack over for weekend meals. That's why people often saw them together entering and exiting school on weekends. Recently, Rose had surgery to remove uterine polyps. Her mother, who was in poor health, asked Jack to accompany her. That was why they went to the hospital together. And that hospital happened to combine the gynecology and obstetrics departments, hence the misunderstanding. I don't like her. I don't even have a girlfriend. But you. Jack's gaze burned into mine. Yana, do you really have a boyfriend? He was so close that I could feel his breath on my face and even catch the fresh scent of his body wash. I thought of what he'd said earlier. "I've only ever been with you." Words caught in my throat. You what? His pupils grew closer, and I saw his dark lashes flutter in front of me. Noticing his gaze drop to my lips, I instinctively leaned back in my chair. Just as he was about to kiss me, the doorbell rang. Jack shut his eyes and took a deep breath through gritted teeth before getting up to open the door. When he saw who was standing outside, his expression looked like he'd swallowed a fly. He turned back to me with a sarcastic smile. "Very cautious, aren't you? Journalist Ramsey." I was confused. He walked over, closed my laptop, and handed it to me. "This revision should be good enough." His expression cracked just a little, a bitter smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Go on. Your boyfriend's here to pick you up." Before coming, I had been afraid of an awkward situation and sent Mike the villa's location. I told him if he didn't hear from me in an hour, to come get me. I'd been so focused on revising and listening to Jack explain things, I'd completely lost track of time and forgot to update Mike. I looked at Jack, instinctively wanting to explain that Mike wasn't really my boyfriend. But then I thought, so what if Rose wasn't in the picture? Would Jack really like me? He had said it himself, he didn't like lattes, and he never would. I was just a flavor he'd never liked to begin with. He'd taken a sip by accident, and now found it neither pleasant nor worth throwing away. With that thought, my gaze cooled. All right, goodbye. After that day, I never saw Jack again. Before Mike left Beijing, he took me out for one last meal. "Fatty, I don't think you're good at judging people." I looked up from my food. "What do you mean?" "I think that Professor Smith likes you." We're both men. When he opened the door that time, his eyes were sharp as knives. That kind of look doesn't lie. "And Fatty, haven't you noticed that lately, every time you talk to me, you always bring him up somehow?" I paused, fork and knife in hand. "Really? You're imagining things." I quickly changed the topic. "Enough about me. What about you? You're not young anymore, anyone you like." Mike sighed and looked out the window. "There is. But she's the kind of woman I'll never be able to reach. This lifetime, I'll just keep her in my heart as a memory." After he left, Mike sent me a picture from the plane. It read, "In the long river of life, someone will always stun your youth. And you will, inevitably, stun someone else's." That afternoon, I was struggling with an interview outline when I received a friend request from a stranger. I hesitated for a moment, then accepted. The person didn't waste time and introduced herself, Rose. "Me? What do you want?" "Rose. Miss Ramsey, I think it's important to know your place. Since Jack doesn't like you, there's no point in clinging on." I sent her 3 capitalized question marks. She continued, "I'm not afraid to tell you, Jack and I are closer than you can even imagine. Why do you keep humiliating yourself?" Then, as if possessed by some drama blogger, she began describing her unspeakable intimacy with Jack in vivid detail. I set my phone aside and went back to writing my interview outline. I didn't send a message until my phone had been silent for a long time. "Jack has a mole on his inner thigh. Do you know if it's on the left or right side?" Rose didn't reply. When I sent a question mark afterward, I got a red exclamation mark in return. I took a long screenshot of the conversation and sent it to Jack. There's always a person responsible. Let the one who should handle it, handle it. A few minutes later, Jack replied quickly, "Sorry to bother you. I'll take care of it." The interview outline I received was for a new energy vehicle company. On the day of the interview, we met at the company's internal cafe. The originally scheduled general manager had something come up, and the interviewee became a greasy-faced deputy GM. Ever since I interviewed Jack before, I'd deliberately put effort into studying the new energy sector. This time, the interview went smoothly and pleasantly. After the interview, the deputy GM insisted I stay for dinner, and I couldn't easily decline. But when I saw the roses carefully arranged on the dining table, I couldn't help frowning instinctively. "Journalist Ramsey, your job must be tough. Do you make much money?" "Not as much as you, but I really love what I do." The deputy GM chuckled and subtly stretched his foot under the table. "Actually, during the interview, I thought, someone as outstanding as you shouldn't be carrying some average bag worth a few $100. You should be using Chanel, wearing Cartier. I've had a few fresh grads under me before. They lived pretty comfortably. I fought back the rising anger and reminded him. Mr. Jones, if I'm not mistaken, you have a wife, and she just gave birth to your son this year. His expression cooled, but he toyed with his watch indifferently. Journalist Ramsey, no wealthy man has only one woman. If you're willing, you can have my child too. When he reached over to grab my wrist, I stood and splashed my lemon water in his face. He flew into a rage. Bitch, don't know what's good for you, huh? He lunged toward me, but in the next second, someone grabbed his wrist and pushed him back into his seat. Whose child do you want her to have? Yours, Leo. Jack walked over and pulled me behind him. It suddenly clicked he was likely the technical consultant the car company had hired. The moment Mr. Jones recognized Jack, he immediately deflated. Jack led me out of the restaurant and into a car. His expression was visibly grim. I didn't understand why he was angry. I was the one who just dealt with a scumbag. And it wasn't the first time I'd experienced something like this. As a journalist, I naturally record everything. If he tried to take it further, the evidence would speak for itself. He's the one taking care of you? The car pulled over to the curb. Jack suddenly spoke. Realizing he meant Mike, I got a little mad. This is my job. No one could have seen it coming. What does it have to do with him? Jack took my phone from my bag and handed it to me. Fine. Then call him now. Tell him to come pick you up and comfort you. If he can't do that, what right does he have to take care of you? The air in the car felt suffocating. I'd never seen Jack this angry. Our eyes met, and the humiliation I felt just now, mixed with his pressing questions, turned into a lump in my throat. I couldn't hold back the tears welling up in my eyes. And what right do you have to question me like that? Just because you once said, in front of all the students, that you didn't like lattes and would never like lattes for the rest of your life. I laughed bitterly. Jack, I admit, Mike isn't my boyfriend. He's just my childhood friend. But at least he stands up for me. Not like you. You only ever bullied me. I opened the car door and got out. It had started to rain lightly. Ignoring Jack's shouts behind me, I ran toward the street to hail a taxi. But before I could, he scooped me up and shoved me back into the car. 10 minutes later, we arrived at his villa. I clung to the seat and refused to get out. Jack gave a cold laugh, said nothing more, and carried me directly into the villa, placing me on the kitchen island. Just as I was wondering what he was doing, he pulled milk coffee from the fridge and mixed up a whole pot of latte using a wine decanter. Then, he tilted his head back and chugged it down. The brown liquid soaked through his shirt, outlining the muscles of his chest. I was stunned, overwhelmed with a flood of complicated feelings I couldn't describe. He set down the empty carafe, panting slightly, his eyes slightly red as he looked at me. I never hated lattes. I've always liked them. The anger bottled in my chest suddenly loosened. I sighed helplessly. Jack, if you like something, you like it. If you don't, you don't. People don't need to force themselves. There was a flicker of regret in Jack's dark eyes. Sorry. Back then, I just didn't want you to be so obvious about liking me. Yana, having rumors spread about you and your teacher, it wasn't good for your reputation. When I said nothing, he continued. I wanted to chase you after you graduated. But I saw from your employment form that you'd gone back to your hometown to work at a TV station. Young girls' hearts change easily. I thought maybe you didn't like me anymore. That night, because of the rain, I changed clothes and stayed in the guest room at Jack's house. In the middle of the night, my body felt like it was burning up, too hot to move. I got up to pour myself a glass of water. My throat felt like it had been cut with razor blades. I sat on the couch and, half-conscious, somehow fell asleep. When I woke again, there was a fever patch on my forehead. Jack held me down gently when I tried to get up. You've got a fever. Doesn't look like a regular cold, probably viral. I took the medicine he handed me and drank it down. Then you should take me home. I don't want to infect you. He smiled faintly. If I were going to get it, I already would have. Last night, while I watched over you, you were shivering nonstop. So, I held you while you slept. Me. After getting medication at the hospital, Jack let me stay at his place for a few days so he could take care of me. When you're sick, your willpower is especially fragile and your heart softens easily. Watching Jack cook for me, boil medicine, and even occasionally help me edit drafts from the editor-in-chief, I felt a growing sense of unease in my heart. I wasn't sure whether I should believe him when he said he wanted to pursue me. After all, he had been lukewarm toward me back in university. I couldn't believe he really liked me now. Until one day, Jack brought back a fluffy little corgi. The moment I saw it, I pounced and happily rubbed its furry head. "How did you know corgis are my favorite?" I asked. Jack, dressed casually at home, leaned against the wall and looked down at me with a smile. "Your roommate told me. In our 3rd year, when you had a high fever, you saw a corgi in the bushes downstairs and immediately perked up, just like now." My memory was involuntarily pulled back to that year. It was just after the lockdown was lifted. I had caught a high fever. Somehow, my roommate managed to get some medicine that was nearly impossible to find. Even after taking the medicine, I still felt groggy. But then I saw a fluffy little corgi wagging its head and panting at me from the grass outside the dorm. I tossed it pieces of sausage from the balcony, and before I knew it, my mood had lightened. Thinking of that, I asked incredulously, "That corgi was yours?" "I borrowed it from a PE teacher in the neighboring department. And the medicine, was that you who gave it to my roommate?" Jack crouched down and gently patted the corgi's head. "Yeah." A few days later, my fever had subsided and I could return to work. Before leaving, I wanted to take the little corgi with me and transfer money to Jack for buying it. But he refused. He held the corgi and handed me a spare key. "Snow can only live here. If you want to see him, come by any time." He raised an eyebrow at me, looking downright sneaky. But who could resist a fluffy little corgi you've already bonded with? Those 4 little legs stepped right onto my soft heart and completely melted it. After that, I started showing up at Jack's place more often. There were even a few times when he was away on business trips, and I would come over to take care of Snow. Then, one time when Jack was away in a nearby city for a seminar, I went over as usual to change Snow's food and take him for a walk. But at the entrance of the complex, I was stopped by Rose. She seemed agitated. "Yana, I didn't expect you to be this shameless, clinging to Jack's home like this." I hugged Snow tightly in my arms. "Shameless? I think you've got me beat there, Miss Garcia. All those R-rated things you described about you and Jack?" I forwarded them to him to confirm if they were even real. Rose's face twisted with fury. "You actually said that? If it weren't for those messages you sent, why would Jack stop going to your place? Your mom supported him all this time, and now he won't even look at her. He's just an ungrateful scumbag." I remembered what Jack had once explained to me. That instantly made me mad, and I snapped back. "If I'm not mistaken, Jack's parents regularly sent money so he could eat at your place. Your mom treated Jack well, and he truly appreciated it. But if that money had gone to a nanny, they would have raised him just the same." Saying your family raised him? What a convenient way to twist the truth. Rose's face turned red and then pale. She stomped off in her high heels. I thought that would be the end of it. But 2 days later, a trending topic exploded online. Hashtag Professor-Student Romance in University A's Computer Science Department hashtag. The expose included photos of Jack and me entering and leaving his home, as well as screenshots from an old campus thread where I had supposedly pursued Jack. The comment section was filled with outrage. "Professor-student relationships are disgusting. Have they no shame? Looks like she chased him first. Are all college girls like this now? Someone should investigate her thesis and scholarships. There's probably something shady going on." University A, being a prestigious century-old institution, immediately issued a statement. The professor in question was suspended pending investigation. I called Jack, but his phone was off. He should have returned to the city the day before, There was no reason for him not to answer. The next day, as the public frenzy intensified, my profession was also dug up. Fortunately, my editor trusted me. Once I explained everything, she contacted media friends to help suppress the trending topic. Eventually, the university released an official announcement. It stated in black and white that in our third year, after an anonymous report, the school had interviewed Jack about a possible professor-student relationship. They found the accusation to be false, but still asked him to clarify things with me to avoid future issues. The timing of that interview? Right before he rejected me publicly. So, my so-called bravery back then really did cause him trouble, and nearly dragged me into a mess I never knew existed. The announcement ended with, "Upon investigation, the student in question has already graduated. There is no professor-student relationship or academic misconduct. Romantic relationships among faculty are private matters and should not be overly scrutinized, as long as they follow public norms and ethics." As of this statement, Professor Jack has submitted his resignation. The university has reviewed and accepted it. We urge the public to view this matter rationally. It felt like something heavy had slammed into my heart. I dialed Jack's number while grabbing my keys and rushing out the door. The call rang and rang, but no one answered. I opened the villa door. The living room was shrouded in darkness, with the heavy scent of medicine hitting me as soon as I stepped in. I turned on the light and saw Jack lying on the sofa, his face pale and haggard. As soon as I walked in, Snow wagged her hips furiously beside him. Jack forced himself to sit up. "Why are you here?" I couldn't hold back my emotions and threw myself into his arms. But what came out of my mouth was a slight reproach. "Why didn't you answer my calls?" Jack stiffened for a moment, then rubbed my head and said, "My phone was bombarded with calls from the media yesterday, so I just turned it off. Then, right after I finished the resignation procedures, I found out I'd gotten sick. I've been lying here all day." Speaking of his resignation, that was exactly what had made me so upset. I pulled myself out of his embrace, sat upright, and said seriously, "Someone's clearly targeting you. You didn't do anything wrong. You shouldn't be the one resigning." "I know." Jack gave me a smile. "But as long as I stay, the label of teacher-student romance will keep hovering over us, and people will keep gossiping about you." Seeing my expression fall, he lifted my chin and comforted me. "Over the years, many new energy companies have reached out to me. I've also been thinking about leaving so I can apply my algorithms more effectively in the real world. So don't worry." That night, Jack told me to go home, but I refused and insisted on staying to take care of him. The illness made his throat dry and sore. In the middle of the night, I poured a glass of water and went into his room. As I tucked the blanket around him, Jack suddenly opened his eyes and pulled me onto the bed. His hot body moved closer. He flipped over and pinned me beneath him, his eyes hazy and confused. "What are you doing?" "Trying to sneak attack me." I licked my lips. "Don't talk nonsense." I just brought you some water." Then I reached out and touched his forehead. His fever had gone down a bit, but was still warm. "Did you check your temperature?" Jack stared deeply into my eyes. "Yeah, 38 degrees. I blurted out instinctively, "Still that high?" Jack curled his lips slightly, a meaningful glint in his eyes. "Not high, just right." Before I could figure out what he meant, the next second he leaned in close to my ear and murmured with a low chuckle, "Wanna try me at 38 degrees? Not long after Jack became the CTO of the largest domestic new energy vehicle company, 2 professors at a university were reported for academic misconduct. Among them, Tomas was exposed for data fabrication and maliciously reporting colleagues. Rose was diagnosed with delusional disorder during the investigation. No need to ask, it was obviously Jack's doing. After all, when Leo bullied me last time, he was suspended and investigated by his previous company the very next day. It turned out he'd exploited quite a few fresh graduates and was fired. I was once again assigned a last-minute interview by my editor-in-chief. It was, unsurprisingly, another new energy vehicle company. As I walked out of the editor's office, a colleague complained on my behalf. Seriously, Yana? You're already the team leader, and they still dumped this stuff on you. I glanced at the company name on the interview outline. Sure enough, someone was as sneaky as ever. The interview was a live-streamed format. Once the camera rolled, I remained professional and asked many questions about the future of algorithms and the challenges of autonomous driving perception. As the interview neared its end, the screen was flooded with comments like, "Hubby, show us your abs." I held back a breath and asked, "Mr. Smith, your fans are asking you to show your abs. Want to give them a little peek on camera?" Jack raised an eyebrow and answered seriously, "No. That kind of private thing is only for my girlfriend." As expected, the comment section erupted in wails of disappointment. I glanced at the fan messages and asked again. Someone asked how your girlfriend managed to win you over. Jack looked at me, his eyes twinkling like starlight. "She didn't chase me. I chased her. I called her editor-in-chief so many times just to get her assigned to interview me. Then I played the sympathy card, acted pitiful like a puppy to win her over. So that's how it was." I snorted and said, "Wow, you really are sneaky." Just then, a staff member brought over cups of coffee for Jack and me. Jack glanced at it and politely declined. "Sorry, I only like lattes." He looked into the camera and added pointedly, "For life, I also only like lattes."